knife, fork, and a spoon. No, I won't be teaching you guys how to hold these utensils or how to eat. But I will be teaching you how to model, light, and texture them. Be sure to check out today's tutorial where I'll be teaching you some really cool tips and tricks on how to light, model, and texture these common everyday utensils. And also make sure you leave a comment and let me know what you think about it. All right, everyone, let's jump in. So what you're looking at right now is a AI standard shader attached to this, and what I need to do is actually apply, actually UV map this. So what I am going to do is go into the UV editor. So this is our UV editor, and what I can do is simply right mouse click, go to UVs, or UV shell, highlight all that, and then just delete it and start from scratch. Select a few faces. Now we've selected those faces, we'll go to create, and then we'll click on planar from the z-axis, and we'll click apply. We can go to modify and unfold. Okay, right mouse click, UV shell, click on this guy, press W, move it over, and then we'll do the same thing for the back side of this. So let's go to object mode, press Control 1 to look at the back of this, and we'll select the faces. We'll go back to create, and then planar, and then we'll go to modify, unfold, we'll rotate it, kind of scale it up like that. Okay, and then last but not least, so I'll go to face, I'll select those faces, and then you can see that the outer border is not selected, so I'll hold shift and then deselect. And then with these faces selected, we just go to create, I'll go to automatic and see what we can get with that. All right, now I just want to turn on my checker pattern, just look at the, make sure that squares are perfect, and then scale them down in here. Okay. So now we have our UV set. We're going to apply the material. All right. So we'll press Control 1 to go back into our perspective. I just added 3 lights, simple backdrop. This particular light here, exposure is at 8. This is my key light, exposure at 12, and this is my fill, exposure at 9. And now what we want to do is to give it a simple AI standard shader. So first thing we want to do is go over here to Arnold, AI standard shader. So we can right mouse click on the AI standard shader, add to favorite. So now up here under your favorites, it's right there. All right, so Arnold, AI standard shader. We'll rename this to spoon. Let's call it metal spoon. Metal spoon. And then we will press tab and type in file. We'll go to texture, and in the video description I have a link of this file. Okay, so we'll look for that file. That file is found under my images. All right, and then we will press the inputs or the outputs, color R, left mouse click and hold and take it to the transmission roughness, and then we will middle mouse drag and drop this onto our spoon. Okay, now when we click on render, you see that there are a few things that don't look right. So we'll go over to our metal spoon tab, and let me delete some history. We're going to change the metalness all the way up, and there we go. We can actually see some of the colors, right? Some of the textures on there, and you can change how much you want by changing the metalness. Kind of change the diffuse color down a little bit more. And in our reference image, it kind of looked like this. So let's see here. So it wasn't as shiny as you would expect, but it kind of had a little bit more of a flatness to it. Okay, so if we wanted like even the textures on here smaller, we can change the repeat pattern of the image file. So I'll go ahead and do that now, and then you could also see that, you know, the edges aren't as smooth, so we can just press 3 and then it starts to smooth it out a little bit. So let's go back into our hypershade, and then in our hypershade, let's go ahead and stop the render. Okay, let's just stop the render. Take a small section. Okay, zoom in and go to our place 2D texture, and then under the repeat UV we could change it to something maybe like 3 and 3, and then let's render that region, and now that texture pattern is much smaller. Now that bright light right there is coming from our area lights, but I like that shape. Maybe let's try 4. Let's try 5 and 5. Yes, that looks nice. So if you change the repeat UV to a smaller value, you will definitely see more pattern on that object. So I'll actually just keep it at I like 5 and 5. I'll close this out for now. Click on our spoon, and the IOR is the index of refraction, and you can see like by default it has different selections there. I do believe that metal is, for silver, the index of a refraction is 1.082. Just the way the light refracts off of it. And yeah, so I'm happy with this. So in my render view, actually in my perspective view, I have a basic shape here for utensils, area light on the left side of the spoon, and then another area light at a 45-degree angle. And so let's go ahead and open up the attribute editor. So in the attribute editor, under Arnold, I created exposure of 8, and then my final samples are 3. And then for this particular area light, my exposure is at 9.5 and the samples are at 3. When I'm usually doing a test render, I keep the samples very low. Okay, and that's because I don't want the render times to be through the roof. And in my render settings here, my final render settings are 4, 3, 4, 2, 2, and 2. Okay, so for those of you who just like to skip to the end, those are my secret numbers. Now they're everyone's, but for those of you that want to learn, let's go ahead and set this thing up from scratch. So I'll change this to a value of 2, 2, 2, 1, 1, and 1. I think those are the default values. And if we get a render now, let's go ahead and do this and go to render. Okay. So that's what we have. This shader is actually, I use a preset and I made the preset plastic, and then I changed the roughness to 0.45, and let's go ahead and change the color to black. Okay, so I'll just show you what it looks like. So if I go to plastic, replace, see I change the color to black, and then the roughness to 0.45. Okay, just like that. It's really important for you to make sure that your objects are like not going all the way through the geometry, but just right at the surface. So that works for me. And what else is a good tip? Yeah, just playing with the light. So let's start off with this one. Samples at 1. Let's change that to 0. And then let's change the samples to 1. And then change that samples to 3. Okay. So I'm slowly going to increase the value. Okay. So we had it at 9.5. There are a lot of things that are going to affect the final image here. For instance, the distance of this area light to that object. So if I move this, let's say like further away in the z-axis, you could see that the kind of circular shape of that area light is now further. It's no longer illuminating our object. And then if I move it further in front of it, that circular shape is in front of our object. And that's just a personal preference. I wanted that circular shape to be right on top of it, like that. Okay. And then second thing, if we move it higher, you can see that it changes how much light is reaching that spoon. So you want to try to find the right balance. Okay. So again, for me, I'm trying to get that circular shape over the spoon. And I think that works. Now I already saved the position of this light by just pressing S. So you can see that little marker right there. So if I go there, that's my position. And then this light over here is just like just an accent. It helps me to see a little bit more of the edge of this spoon. Now this is all like artistic So you can do anything you want with any of these lights. I just decided to use two. And another tutorial that I did earlier, I think I used like 5 lights and I didn't like the result of it, so I'm actually redoing the rendering. All right, so let's go ahead and increase that exposure. I think it was like 8.5. So you can see a little bit more of, let me capture just that side. So this rim, or the edge of that spoon, you could see it. Watch, let me just go ahead and take a snapshot. Before, and then let's make this 0. And this is after. So you could clearly see in the 2 images how increasing the exposure of this area light brings out the little highlighted edge. And then you can, again, like I said, it's all art. So if you wanted to, I don't know, change that to red, what does it look like? Well, it's at -5, so let's increase that. If you want to make it green. So you add your own flair to it. And again, if you change the angle of that, depends, it's going to show less of it. I don't know, it's up to you. I'll change this back to white. And that value 8.5. And yeah, what also changes this image is the size of it, right? Scalability. So if I were to scale it up wider, you can see now that it's still the same distance, but the light coverage has been dispersed over a larger area, and it's actually losing the intensity of the light. So if I were to increase that to, let's say, 12, maybe like a lower value, it doesn't give us the same effect that we had before, but you do get a chance to see a larger surface of this area being lit by that light. The results are nice, but I like having the vignette going on here. So I'm just going to press Control Z to undo until I get the original results. And yeah, so that's how we get a really beautiful render. I hope that you guys enjoyed this tutorial, and please like, subscribe, leave a comment in the comment section. Let me know if there's any tutorials that you guys would like to see in the future. Oh, and one more thing before we wrap this up, let me give you the final render settings. I gave them to you before, but I'll give them to you again. In our render settings, go to Arnold Render and change that to 4, 3, 4, 2, 2, and 2. I have another tutorial where I go over all these settings in much further detail, but for now, let's go ahead and give you one final render. And there you go. You guys have a blessed day. I'll see you in the next tutorial. All right, peace.